On the next episode of Footnote, we welcome author Len Saunders to talk about his new book, Keeping Kids Fit, a family plan for raising strong, active, healthy children.
It's just a reference guide for parents to teach them about nutrition and eating properly and exercise and getting the right amounts of sleep and hydrating the body and about sports and what you can do to help your kids be healthy.
It's all coming up on the next episode of Footnote. Welcome to Footnote and the A&T bookstore in Clifton, New Jersey. I'm your host, Kimberly Austin. We are facing an epidemic of overweight and out-of-shape kids, and parents are the front line in the fight to regain our children's health. Today, author Len Saunders joins us and talks about his book, Keeping Kids Fit, a family plan for raising active, healthy children. Len will help us look at the causes of this epidemic and how we can best help our children. Thanks for joining us, Len.
Thank you.
So, Len, I'm very excited to talk to you about your book, Keeping Kids Fit. It's a family plan for raising healthy, happy children. Tell us more about the book.
The book's a unique reference guide for parents to help their kids lead healthy lifestyles. It talks about health, nutrition, diet, sleep, hydration, and it reminds them of the things that maybe they forgot. And they can look at the book and say, oh yeah, I need to do that for my kids to help them lead a healthy lifestyle.
It is a really practical book. I want to know more about you. What's your background?
I'm a physical education teacher. I've been teaching for 30 years now, and I love working with kids. I like helping them to lead a healthy lifestyle, teaching them about what they need to do. All the stuff that's in my book, I teach to my children every year in my classes, and it's important to me that they know the benefits of leading a healthy life.
Was there a particular, I think you were telling me earlier about a young girl that you had met and you had helped, and that was really a catalyst for this career change?
Yes, when I first started teaching, there was a girl, and she was morbidly obese, and it was very upsetting to me to watch her. She couldn't even make it up and down the steps, and her mom and dad cornered me, and they were both overweight as well, and they were worried about her, and that they wanted her to lead a normal life and to be accepted socially, but she wasn't, and it broke my heart. And I took the time to work with her during my lunch breaks, and after school I would go to their house and help set up a nutrition plan for them and get her to exercise, and she started losing weight. And she used to come back every year to visit me and show me what she looked like, and I was like, wow, you look great. But she was happy, her self-esteem was good, and it made me feel like I had a positive influence in her life, like people did in my life as a child.
Now, you mentioned in the book very early on, and I thought this was surprising, that not only are kids overweight, but they generally have another risk factor as well. Tell us about those risk factors.
Well, a lot of kids right now may look normal to us, but they may not be. When we look at kids, we see a normal, slender child, but there may be more fat mass there than lean body mass. And we need to be aware of this because many years ago, kids went out and played for hours upon hours, and play and children were natural companions. Now play and technology with the fingers, they're
not
natural
a lot of
companions.
exercise there.
Right. So the kids may look the same, but their body composition is not. There's a lot more fat mass there, and we need to be worried about that because many kids do have risk factors for heart disease right now, whether it's physical inactivity, obesity, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high insulin, high triglycerides. There's a lot of concern. So
you mentioned now that kids are more at risk for high blood pressure. Diabetes is a big deal right now too. Isn't there been a big change in that area?
There has been. 25 years ago it was called juvenile diabetes and then adult onset diabetes. And now it's type 1 and type 2. Ah. Many kids are now getting type 2, which used to be adult onset diabetes. And that's interesting to me because the name changed. And you can't call it adult onset anymore because kids are getting it. And type 2 diabetes is environmental. So
What does that mean?
what that means is because kids are very sedentary and they're becoming obese, there's a correlation between obesity and type 2 diabetes. So since many kids are inactive now, they're not getting that healthy lifestyle and they're very sedentary, they are becoming candidates for type 2 diabetes, which is a very big scare right now. Many years ago, there were kids who had type 2 diabetes, but now there's a lot of kids who do. So it's a big change that we need to be aware of.
So type 2 diabetes you can start to change and oftentimes even get rid of with
Yes.
diet and exercise.
Yes.
But if you don't do that, type 2 can become type 1, which is insulin dependent.
Yes, over time, but type 2 we can lose.
That's good.
And parents, simply by losing weight and getting the kids active and eating normal, they can. So it's something within our control, and we need to be aware of that. Type 2 is different than type 1, and a lot of parents don't realize that there is a big difference. Type 1 you can't control. The pancreas stops making insulin.
Right.
Type 2, environmental, so change the environment to make it better.
Now that's good news that you can actually get rid of type 2, even if you have the risk factors for it. And it is very practical advice. In fact, when we come back, we're going to learn more about the specifics of Len's program, so stay with us. Welcome back. We're talking with author Len Saunders, and his book is called Keeping Kids Fit, a Family Plan for Raising Active, Healthy Children. So Len, let's talk more about the book specifically. And earlier you did mention that kids have an innate sense of play, but no pun intended, we've moved very far away from that. How has that happened?
I think the problem right now, there's a lot of households where two parents work and the kids come home, they're not allowed to go outside by themselves. Kids don't walk to school like they used to anymore. Simple things like vending machines in schools, they have fatty foods in them. When I was a kid, you went to the cereal aisle, it was 2 shelves. Now it's 2 aisles. There's just a lot of changes that have been taking place in our society that technology is really taking over for kids, and it's causing a generation of sedentary children.
Well, how much exercise do kids really need? Is it the same as adults need?
Definitely not, because their bone structure is not developed yet, then their endurance levels are not developed yet. Kids don't need to go to the gym and pump iron and get big muscles or go on a treadmill and run at high intensities. They just need 60 minutes of play every day. It could be a walk, a bike ride, playing in the backyard, kickball, and it doesn't have to be 60 minutes of continuous. It could be 10 minutes here, 20 there, 30 there. 60 minutes of play, that's it, simple format.
So your book is a family plan for action. So how important is it that parents model this behavior as well?
I think parents are the key issue here, because a lot of parents are setting examples, and kids don't know the difference between what's acceptable behavior and what isn't. If they see a parent doing something that maybe is okay for a parent but not for a kid, the parent needs to tell the kid, no, what, this is an adult thing. But as far as exercise goes, if a kid sees the parent on a couch watching TV and not exercising, well, that's what they're going to model. They need to set examples and be the lead for the child.
You mentioned liquid candy. It's a good thing to point out to parents how many calories are in beverages.
A lot, and 1 in 5 calories that kids consume right now are from liquids. And
wow.
we have to realize that they can drink low-fat, non-fat milk or 100% all-natural fruit juices and a lot of water. But the liquid candy is a major problem right now between soda, juices, and flavored milks. There's a lot of calorie and fat in that.
I'm so not surprised. I can't tell you how many kids I see in coffee shops after school. And first of all, ordering coffee. I don't know any kid that used to drink coffee when we were kids. Yeah. But it's got whipped cream, it's got syrup, it's got caramel.
Yeah, and they have a lot of energy.
They do. Now, what do you do? I've seen parents run into this situation. If one of the kids is overweight and or lackadaisical, let's say, but the others are not, how does a family handle that?
Well, there's a lot of answers to that question, because there's a lot of social issues to be concerned with and a lot of physical, mental things, but you have to work together as a family unit. And if one child is overweight and the others are not, we have to find the root of the problem. And it could be that this child is depressed or unhappy or has some type of physiological problem that needs to be addressed with a doctor. but you have to be supportive, and the family needs to not make fun of them, and to keep foods in the house that are healthy, and not eat in front of this child foods that they should not be eating, but mainly to keep it under control and find out what the root of the problem is, if it's emotional, physiological, whatever it might be, and work to fix it as a family.
And really, your advice is good for anyone, so it is important that the entire family participate for their own health.
Absolutely.
Now, what are some ways, because I really liked in your book, you gave different age-appropriate ways to motivate children. What are some ways to motivate the kids?
Well, everything needs to be fresh and new. For example, let's say your children are watching 2 to 4 hours of TV a night, which is a lot, on top of all the other technology. Do you take TV away cold turkey? No, because they're not going to respond. What about if your children exercise during commercials? Every time a commercial comes on TV, they have to exercise the entire commercial break. And they watch 4 hours of TV a night. That could be 45 minutes of exercise right there. So they can commercial size.
I like that.
They can exercise when the commercials come on. That way you're not taking away something that they like, but they're doing something and conforming to what you want. And you have to be creative with children. It doesn't work, go down and give me 20 push-ups. That doesn't work anymore. Kids today are very visual, and they need to be entertained and keep it fresh.
Is there a best way to talk to kids about their health? You know, I don't think a lot of kids can, if you say to them, well, you're going to have a heart attack when you're 80 if you keep eating like that, it really doesn't, they're not able to take that to heart and have it mean something. Is there a better way to talk to them?
One thing I like to tell parents, I call it the bank method. Kids understand money in a bank, and you put money in a bank, it makes you stronger later on. It collects interest, it gives you security about knowing that you have money for the future. It's an extra benefit. Exercise, eating right, it's like making a health deposit into the bank. And you're not doing it for now, but you're doing it for the future. So when we make all these health deposits in our bank, you may not see the dividends right now, but you will see it as an adult. And it's something you need to do on a regular basis.
That's good advice. And in fact, we're going to be back with more of Len's great advice right after this. Stay with us. Welcome back. We're continuing our chat with author Len Saunders. Len, you mentioned earlier that there are a lot of tips and tricks that you can use to motivate kids, but we haven't really talked about why some programs aren't successful. And in fact, in your book, you mentioned 3 big reasons why kids fail. What are they?
There's many reasons why habits occur. Some are good, some are bad. We tend to pay attention to the negative habits and how we can prevent them from happening. For a regular child, the 3 main reasons I feel habits happen: number 1, they're exposed to poor role models, whether it's watching TV or a famous athlete or something they see in the home that is unacceptable for a child to do, and they mimic that behavior. Second thing is a false sense of security. You might see a lot of kids scratch the back of the head as a habit, or do even worse things because it gives them a little hope, a little security. It makes a hormone is released in the body actually that causes them to relax. The third thing is peer pressure, because kids succumb to the group, whether they're the only one not doing something or verbally the kids are encouraging to do something. So those 3 reasons are my top 3 reasons why it happens for a regular child. Obviously there are other reasons, depression, but for the mainstream child.
I'm really glad you mentioned peer pressure, because that gives us a chance to talk about body image. How important is recognizing those issues in children in motivating them on the path to wellness? Well,
a lot of kids look at their body image as how they fit in socially. Unfortunately, the kids who are losing too much weight or maybe look thin in appearance, they may not be as healthy as we think they are. There's been studies that say kids who are maybe slightly overweight or have healthier bodies. So it's a matter of just taking care of yourself, doing things in moderation, and not being overly obsessed with how you look, but feeling good about yourself personally and not how others interpret how you look.
Because your book isn't just a diet and exercise book, it's also for kids who might be too thin and have the opposite end of the spectrum.
Well, a lot of times when kids are too thin, their bodies are breaking down things in their body that they should not be breaking down, and it could lead to a weaker immune system. So it's something that you need to watch as a parent. Make sure your kids are not going the other end of the spectrum and trying to lose too much weight and exercise too much.
Well, let's move to the opposite end now and talk about exercise and technology, because it has taken over everyone's life. We might have had to worry about just TV time in the past, but now it's TV, computer, everybody's texting, and they usually, hopefully, aren't walking and texting, although it's been done. What do you have for ideas on limiting technology time?
Well, parents need to set technology time limits. They should not have free access to do whatever they want to do, however long they want to do it. So keep a log of what your kids are doing, how much technology they're getting, and show them the log so they see on paper what they're actually doing.
It's shocking sometimes.
It's a lot. You'd be surprised what parents find out when they keep track. Technology-free bedrooms are a key thing.
Oh, yeah.
When the kids go to bed at night and they shut that door and the lights go off, the parents, they think they're sleeping. But you know what? They may not be. They have so much access to the cell phone, computer, they're IMing their friends, they're playing video games. There's so much access to different things. We need to make sure that the rooms are technology free and the kids don't have that access to them. When the lights are out, it means you're going to bed. So I think that's a key issue right there. And maybe try a technology shutdown. How about once a week, no technology in the house for an hour? And that includes turning off the lights and live like they did 100, 200 years ago and read books and entertain each other. Just try a shutdown completely and see what happens and see how you survive without that.
That's great. And then when we come back, Len's going to give us a little bit of wrap up, and we're also going to talk about where we're headed as a community in the future. We'll be right back. And we're back with author Len Saunders talking about his book, Keeping Kids Fit, a family plan for raising active, healthy children. You know, one thing that's come up recently, Len, is I've actually heard people say that they go to their pediatrician and look for advice on specifically if their child is overweight, and the doctors sometimes seem reluctant to give advice and or even declare the child overweight. How can parents get the answers they're looking for from their physicians?
It's a very sensitive issue. And a lot of pediatricians maybe don't want to offer that advice. Many will. Many will say, listen, your child is overweight, we need to make a change. But you really need to be specific with your pediatrician and say, listen, is my child overweight? What can I do? And ask them directly. Don't beat around the bush. The kid can go out of the room and you can say to the doctor, is my child overweight? I want to fix this. Please help me. Be specific. Let them know that's what you want. Because some pediatricians are maybe a little hesitant. They've had experience with parents saying to them, don't tell me my kid's overweight. Right. It's a sensitive issue, but it's important to make sure that you do ask so your kids are going on the right path, because ignoring it's not going to help.
And it really is up to the parents, because the schools now can't really take care of the issue. So few schools offer physical education now, or are required by law to offer physical education. The food in the cafeteria, let's face it, not always the most nutritious food. How do parents help their kids overcome those obstacles?
I think education is the key, because something's in the cafeteria does not mean you have to buy it. I think educating them about what they need to eat, how they need to exercise, and leading by example is the main thing here.
Would you say, too, as a community, that we need to be more involved in what our schools are offering and giving to our children?
If the schools are willing to work with you, it's a wonderful concept, but it's hard at times. I think as a group, a community, if the coaches, the teachers, the parents, the aunts, the uncles, the neighbors all work together and collaborate on being role models for the children and being consistent about it, our kids will benefit from it.
Now, you've actually developed some programs that are very successful, and you have been able to work with some school systems as well. Tell us about your programs.
Well, I do many programs throughout the year because my key thing is motivation and keeping it fresh. I do a program in May called Project ACES. Millions of kids are going to exercise on the first Wednesday in May at the same time all across the world. And it's a motivational tool because kids know that other children are going to be doing it with them, maybe in a different country or a different state, and they're excited about it. 10 o'clock in the morning on their clock, when it hits 10 o'clock, we're exercising. All over the world, kids are doing it with us. Wow. And it's a lot of fun. I did a program just recently where it's called Exercise Us. Kids in the United States exercise for 10 continuous hours. Each school took a 15-minute time slot, and it's like a big relay race. When their 15-minute time slot was done, another school picked up that time slot after them. So from 8 o'clock to 8:15, my school might exercise. From 8:15 to 8:30, another school would go. And it's a big relay race. It's a chain of exercise, travels all across the country. Kids loved it.
You've also had some pretty amazing athletes write praise for your book as well. Tell us about that.
Well, what was interesting to me was that 99% of the athletes I wrote a letter to, they all wanted to be part of this. They all saw the need to reduce childhood obesity. Michael Phelps, Olympic champion, Tony Hawk, Vince Carter, basketball, they don't need to do it, but they realize it's an important topic, and they all said, yes, we'd love to write a quote for your book, or to write a foreword. Shannon Miller, the Olympic gymnast, gold medalist. It was amazing, the feedback. I was so happy with it.
So before we go then, what are some of your top tips for getting kids on the path to wellness?
I think the main thing is the parents are involved. I think when parents lead by example, the kids follow right behind them, and they mimic their behavior. Whether it's smoking cigarettes, if a parent is doing that, the kid, they think that's acceptable behavior. So we have to be very, very careful what we do in front of our kids and how we act, and keep it fresh and exciting with them, and make sure that we are the role model for them, and not something that they're going to take and say, oh, my mom does that, I can do that. And lead by example. So
Len, what's next for you? Writing another book?
I'm writing another book called Buddy Bee, and it's a book about the circle of life, and about a bird and a bee who become friends and experience life together.
And you're continuing your programs, ACEs, PACEs,
yes.
And can we see you out? Do you give speeches at all? Or?
I just spoke this past weekend at the American College of Sports Medicine, but there's some more coming up that I'm looking forward to.
Well, it was a real pleasure having you today. I really appreciate how practical your advice is. It's the kind of advice that you may have known, but it's really nice to hear it again, and in such a user-friendly kind of way. Thanks so much for being here, Len. Staying fit and eating well is a family affair, and it doesn't have to be expensive or time-consuming. As Len says, children have an innate sense of play. Use that to lay the foundation for good health. After all, what greater gift could you give your children? Thank you for being with us today. I hope you'll join us again next time on Footnote.
Right.